one.
Right. So welcome to the second review of this Fragments of Silicon review session. Suppose we could come up with a more clever name for that title, but we couldn't be arsed. Anyway, this time up, we've got Rock of Ages 2, Bigger and Boulder. Yes, that is a pun for those who can't, who aren't looking at our video version.
Bigger and Boulder with a U.
Yeah, it's a play on words because, like, the main, I suppose, mascot of this series is the boulder with a face on it. Right. So, for those who haven't played either Rock of Ages games, this is certainly a unique game. Because it's its self-described genre is tower defense racing. Although racing isn't the word I'd use because you're not, or at least the main mode here, you're not really racing. I suppose racing.
You kind of are, but you're not like racing directly at your opponent.
Yeah, at least it's single
more
player.
It's more like you're racing to build your towers and then get your attacker to the other thing before your opponent builds defenses to stop you and gets their attackers to your thing. Right. It's like a race as the whole process, but it's not like a race as in you're running a race directly against a certain opponent.
Right. I like Rock of Ages 2 does actually have a more legitimate racing mode called Obstacle Course, like where you are actually racing against the other boulder to get to the end of the track, and you have to avoid, well, a whole bunch of obstacles, which are the tower defense implements, and also like holes and shit. But yeah, Rock of Ages, is definitely not like I can't think of another game quite like it.
It's very quirky. The art style is very Terry Gilliam.
Mm-hmm. And
the storyline mode is amusing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure you can call it a storyline. I'm not sure about the anything that's going on in here.
Once upon a time, in a world where all wars were won by throwing large boulders down long courses at the opponent, Atlas fell from the sky after having a disagreement with Zeus, and got recruited by a bunch of random people to beat up Richard III, and then a bunch of other people.
Yeah, it was God, not Zeus.
Yeah, I was about to say it was Christian God.
Right, it was the Christian God because it was the clip art from the creation of Adam, or the creation of man.
Yeah, and
and the Atlas was the classic sculpture Atlas Shrugged. One of the playable characters later on is Edvard Munch's The Scream.
Right. That is the thing here. You're not just dealing with historical characters. You're also dealing with fictional characters, biblical characters, and a flaming giraffe. Like, I'm not even joking about that. By the way, that is one of your opponents. I think that's you're also dealing like with painting characters, if you can call them characters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like the entire aesthetic is one big homage to Monty Python, with emphasis on Terry Gilliam. I believe that came up in the interview. Yeah, we did an interview with Ace Team late last year, when this game was in development. Like, and indeed, Rocket Ages 2 has been out for maybe about a month now. Yeah, it came out in late August. Like, yeah, you'll note that these games have been out for a while, and I once again remind you, we were supposed to review these games last week, so that's kind of why why games so recently we're getting to them. Stupid hurricanes. Yeah. So I asked my cohorts when we were playing this game on Friday. More on that in a bit, because this game was giving me some weird problems. And I don't know why. But I asked my cohorts if they had played the first game, and they had replied no. So I am the only one here who has actually played the first game, and I can sum this game up in 3 words then. Expansion pack sequel. Okay, not literally, but, if you've played the first game, you've played this game.
The actual boulder rolling thing is pretty much boulder rolling and obstacle placing is pretty much the same deal.
Yep. Same aesthetic, same general everything. It's kind of in the subtitle. It's just there's more of it. It's bigger and maybe not bolder, but I think the biggest addition was the obstacle course mode. I'm trying to remember if that was in the first one. I played the first one, but that was a long time ago. So obviously my mind, it's a bit fuzzy. And I didn't want to play too much of the first, go back to the first one, because I wanted to analyze this on its own merits. But, I do know that, this game, plays very similarly to the first one. And, I suppose, where that factors in is, which is the better purchase here, and I'm gonna say it's the second one, because, well, the biggest addition here was 4-player multiplayer.
Which is, it's team based. It's so right. There are 2 teams of 2, and both of you can build obstacles and both of you can run boulders at the same time on your team.
Yeah. Now, it's worth noting that there was a multiplayer mode in the first game, but that was limited to 2 people. And, and of course, this game, looks better and all that stuff. It's UE4. But yeah, fundamentally, there's not a lot of difference between this and its forebear. And, if you've not played the series first, I'm going to recommend you play the first one before you play the second one, just because, it's also a little bit cheaper, but, we'll get to that in price.
Yeah, and isn't it also on sales fairly often? The first one?
I'm honestly not sure. I guess. I suppose, another big difference between Rocket Ages 2 and Rocket Ages 1 is you've got a non-linear Super Mario World-esque hub world map thing going on this time around, whereas...
Which is interesting to navigate on, because you still have your physics of rolling the ball.
Yeah, it's odd. Now, as far as the game itself goes, yeah, this game is pretty good, depending on the level. So, it's I'll be honest, I think that, where this game was let down most was in some of the level design. This may be a subjective thing, but yeah, there were some tracks, like the Garden of Eden comes to mind.
Oh, God.
Is that the final level?
It's not the final level. It's one of the earlier levels.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who haven't played this particular one, you're bowling on a series of platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So get good at jumping.
Uh-huh.
If you can,
Yeah, jumping physics is hard.
like, yeah, and they're intentionally so because you're steering a big heavy ball down. You're going downwards. By the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once you get up to speed, you don't have a whole lot of say in what you're doing. You can still jump, but then you'll jump really far and have a hard time controlling where you land.
Yes, and um, you know, they're not so much directions as they are suggestions at that point. It's like I'll be honest, I haven't gotten past this level because it's infuriatingly hard to control your ball, and you keep falling off the ledges. You get damaged.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there are other levels like this, not quite as infuriating, but it's still a matter of, oh look, you fell off the ledge for the 100th time, and you're not as strong as you used to be, kind of deal.
As your enemy gets closer and closer to launching their ball.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues here because I was not able to play the multiplayer.
Yeah, he was having some weird computer issues.
Yeah,
which,
okay.
Fair warning, you might have weird computer issues with this game.
Yeah, it's like it was the weirdest thing. But when I had Skype open, the game didn't want to work. Like I kept clicking in, but it kept jumping out of the window.
And it does have built-in voice chat that we couldn't get to work.
Yeah, I'm like,
which might have something to do with it, but we don't really know.
Yeah, well, I'm having problems with Discord again, and I don't know why.
Yeah, we need to iron those out at some point, just in case Skype decides to go on maintenance.
Yeah. So, I couldn't engage in the multiplayer.
So I think the multiplayer for this game definitely needs good team coordination.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to be...
And it should also be noted... I was going to say, it also should be noted that it goes off your single-player progress.
Oh, yeah, that was an issue we ran into, kind of, is that you unlock, as you play through the game, new balls with different attributes. Like, the person you're playing as is just cosmetic, but the boulder you're playing as has different mechanical effects, and then there are different obstacles that you unlock as you progress through the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you set the game up, you have a total of 6 slots to fill for the multiplayer match, and obstacles take 1 slot usually, and boulders take 2. So you could bring 2 boulders, but then you only have 2 kinds of obstacles to set.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do unlock things by playing multiplayer. You unlock like 1 boulder, 1 obstacle, and 1 new ruler every couple matches. But you unlock things way faster by playing through single player.
Yeah. So it should be noted that if you play the game longer than some of your friends, you're going to have an unfair advantage against them.
But yeah, I don't think we ever ran it close enough a time that we had a problem with running into each other.
Yeah.
The game is very hectic when you're playing because you don't always have the ability to see all the new obstacles in advance. I mean, technically, I guess when you're in building mode, you could look at the other side of the course, but then you're losing time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess it's also meant for you to take repeat runs, because it takes more than 1 run to get to actually deal enough damage to win.
Yeah, I think the opposing gate has somewhere along the lines of 300 hit points, and even like an absolute perfect impact will only get you like 200 points of damage with the default stone.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 subpar hits would still break it sometimes, but and then I never know because I didn't succeed in multiplayer. But then do you have the chance, like in single player, if you broke through the gate so you can squish the opposing
Yes.
ruler immediately? You don't have to do
Yeah.
another run for that. Okay.
Unless your ball breaks on impact with the door, because you get damage dealt to you when you hit the door. So there's a chance you can break on the door and have to roll again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that happened once to the PC or something. So yeah, I wish I'd had more options unlocked so I could have tried more. I only tried the default ball, and then when we were doing the obstacle course mode, I tried the balloon ball, which has terrible impact but jumps super ridiculously high.
Yeah, that one's better for like the obstacle course mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are different maps that it's better or worse on too, because like some of the maps are way like the Pompeii map. Basically, I believe you kind of have to zigzag up a mountain and then do a curve around the crater.
Something like that.
So that one, you want something with good handling on it, probably, or maybe something that can jump well. You do have a little bit of leeway and out of bounds in this game.
You can save yourself, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's kind of a trench around the area, and then there's a fence on the other side of the trench. But at least once I ran out of bounds and jumped completely over the trench and just skipped along the inside of the fence on the other side a little bit and was able to jump back in bounds.
No. Damn spring traps.
So, a question to you guys: did you play both modes, or just like the main mode?
We played both, but we didn't play much of the obstacle course mode.
Yeah. The obstacle course is really kind of basic. I mean, if you basically want to race, then that's your race mode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the way it works is it's a race to whoever gets 3 stars first over a course of multiple runs. If you come in first on a run, you get a whole star. If you come in second on a run, you get half a star. If you don't place first or second, you don't get stars.
It depends how many people are. If there's 4 people, then I think it changes.
It might be a race to 4 stars, but I suspect the star giving is the same. I could be wrong. We only had 3 people available to try it.
Yeah, and it wouldn't let us bring an AI into that one.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun mode, but it's quicker than the other mode. Because you don't have to spend time planning between, like in the first mode, in the main mode, between runs, you have a little countdown meter that's basically all of your little peasants chiseling out a new boulder for you to possess to run down. You don't really have that in this mode for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as the first 2 people finish, it just goes to the next round. I found it kind of hard to tell exactly what the different obstacles I was placing would do in the main mode, but that might just be a lack of experience thing. And a lot of them will just slow things down for a minuscule amount of time. Like the walls you can build are very easy to break through.
Yeah.
The fans and things, the whales that suck you in, and the sticky cows are really more minor nuisances than something that are actually going to stop.
But that's also why they cost less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're supposed to use those in conjunction with like war elephants and catapults. Those are the things that like actually damage the boulder.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a hard time hitting anything with those that I could tell, but
well, remember your opponent can veer around them, so you need to get stout.
Right.
Or you put like 2 elephants in a place to make it harder to Granted, that's more expensive. Like, or you put some cows before the elephants. These are things I have done.
Like, there are some maps that have some obvious choke points that you can just, place elephants or spring traps in that they
Right.
can't
When
get
I saw a
around.
choke point, I was usually putting fans or whales along it to try to knock people off.
And that is another option. You got options in this game. You got options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So, let's see. Right. The music. The music is appropriately whimsical.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this game pretty well nails its aesthetic, and that includes the music.
Yeah. Like, I wish I had more to say about it. Like the music.
It's a lot of fun, but it's hard to compare to things.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those soundtracks that's very theme appropriate, but I really couldn't see myself listening to outside the context of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and don't think it makes too much of a difference because I didn't see an independent soundtrack dealy. There is some DLC.
Oh,
Yes, there's the classic pack, which is free.
And is that what stuff from the previous game?
Yes. There is also a Binding of Isaac pack, which has
that sounds interesting.
Well, it's got skins from the Binding of Isaac, and
So, like, you roll a giant head that can shoot tears.
I didn't buy that, so because the Binding of Isaac pack. Actually, it turns out there is a soundtrack version. I'm like, wait, so no, that's I see what I did. The Binding of Isaac skins and such are free, but I didn't download them.
Yeah, you gotta actually do that.
Yeah, it's the classic pack and the soundtrack that costs money, but $2.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not much.
$2 for each, or $2 for the
$2 for the classic and soundtrack pack.
Yes.
Aha.
Which is a good price for that. About what you'd expect. Like, but yeah, the Binding of Isaac pack. Let me see. Is only available for a limited time, so you might want to download that if you want it.
It does indeed turn your boulder into an enormous, rolling, crying baby head.
Yes. I'm like, and it looks appropriately disturbing. Like, as all things Binding of Isaac tend to look.
Oh yeah, that is pretty much the way that the game works.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Anyway, so I don't know if there's any more DLC coming down the pipeline. I don't like the interview was a long time ago in terms of our production, and if I'm recalling correctly, they were kind of just focused in on getting the main game completed.
Mm-hmm.
So, given what we got here, there's definitely the potential for more DLC down the line. But, I couldn't say if there was going to be any more DLC.
Call of Duty pack that turns your rock into a gun.
Like, I'll note there are awkward rocks to use, like the donuts rock, which flies around, is very maneuverable, but very vulnerable, and not that strong. I'll be honest. It's like I didn't like it's like the ones that weren't very strong because they did less damage.
And that means you had to wait longer because,
Yes.
like, I imagine they recharged a little faster, but
Well, in the case of the wheel, it's it was more you could go faster than like a moderate roll or whatever they called it.
Right.
fair enough.
You know. So um, those are things you have to keep into consideration when you are picking your boulder.
Mm-hmm.
My top one was power because at the end of the day that's what's going to win your game faster.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you don't want to pick something that's too slow or you know has some quirk like the balloon. Yeah, it's easier to jump, but once again, it's significantly weaker. Let's see. So pricing, um, pretty typical indie pricing.
The game is looks like the game is $15, but there's also a combo pack of this game and the first one that's 20, which is like $5 off the normal price.
Yeah, it's like obviously, that package is the best value there.
Again, the DLC price seems to be very reasonable for even if it's just a few new boulders and ruler skins.
Right. Like, I'm not sure if there's any level DLC coming to the package either. Like, it's again possible, but bundle info. Yeah, it's like, um, yeah. Honestly, I'd pick up both games for $20. That's a that's a really good price, and these are good games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a lot
Yeah.
of fun to play. I'm sorry, I'm not better at explaining it, but
Well,
it's kind of hard to explain. Beyond saying what you're doing.
yeah. See, this is why I'm glad we're in the video age now because they can see what the game looks like on the screen. This is a very hard game to describe. I'll be honest, because um,
It's like bowling, but you're playing as the ball.
Not
there-
inaccurate.
Yeah, it's like there are some established conventions we can draw upon. Like, I mean, I like if you want the genre, it's a tower defense game. It's a real time tower defense game.
Actually, if more tower defense did the things where in between phases of building you could actually play as a dude and try to get past the opponent's defenses, I would probably like tower defense games more.
Mm-hmm.
Duly noted. Well, it's a very unique tower defense game. Both in its mechanics and its aesthetic. The only the only other game I can think of to compare Rocket Ages to is Rocket Ages 2. And it also so happens that this isn't the case of where this game gimmick overwhelms it or something like that. Everything plays well together, and it's not just being weird for weird's sake or anything like that. But at the same time, that can be kind of off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you, for whatever weird reason, aren't you don't like Terry Gilliam or those Monty Python animations, this game probably isn't going to do it for you.
Yeah, that aesthetic of like the clipped up art of classical art stuff is like the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or if you don't really, it's got a very whimsical, absurdist, surrealist sense of humor. Like, I think my favorite bit that I've seen so far is their take on William Wallace.
Yeah, I had that just come up.
Is it Mel Gibson?
I'm like, sort of. It's actually they make like, remember the exaggerated things that they mentioned in Braveheart?
Yeah.
That William Wallace is those exaggerated things.
Makes
And he
sense since
shows
it's
up
based
at-
on like artistic. So he shows up and actually literally farts lightning.
Yes.
Yes. And he actually scares off Mel Gibson, Braveheart. I'm like, it's my favorite for a reason. No. so, but like I said, you know, that's a very specific kind of humor here. And if you don't like it, it's like, seek elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like,
Or I guess just skip the cutscenes. I mean, it's your call.
Either
Sure.
way, I'd kind of recommend giving this a try.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm like, yeah. I suppose if I had to rate it, really an 8. Like, it's a really, it's a package that really comes together. It's not just really good mechanics, but it's a really good aesthetic, really good humor, and it all meshes well together. Like, I didn't encounter anything that felt out of place. It's all odd, but it's all in keeping with the wacky internal logic is what I'm getting at. And like I said, I do have some problems with, like the design of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'll be honest, I like the levels where there were no pits or falling hazards, because those were really aggravating.
Yeah.
Yes, they were.
Especially since the computer is good enough to like put spring traps that throw you into them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know how well this game is doing. I hope it's doing good, but, we are in the times of, we've got, 5,000 games releasing on Steam this year.
That's a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Now, if you would have said that 7 years ago, someone would have laughed at you.
I'm like, perhaps, but my point is, Rocket. Even a game like Rock of Ages 2, which is from a very established team, like Ace. I think this is Ace Team's 5th game. 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 6th game. No. And the original Rock of Ages was a fairly notable, hit. Obviously, a big enough one to warrant a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I put this? Hidden secret of the indie world. Sequels are pretty rare on the circuit for a number of reasons. One of which is because that escalation factor that you see in the title. Sequels are expected to be bigger and bolder, and most indie teams don't have it in them to do that. I'm like, I don't think that Ace Team killed themselves to make this game, but it's been in development for a fair amount of time as well, and hopefully this continues, with this particular project, because I like Ace Team and hope they get to do a 7th game. Like,
Yeah, if nothing else, they seem to have a decent amount of creative ideas that are worth gamifying.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think they're one of the most unique talents going on in this industry, and I do hope this is doing well. So I think it's a good value for a good package. Especially if you want to pick up the first game. And yeah, a pretty hearty recommendation. So that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon Reviews. Right. So the week ahead, I am pleased to announce that we are back to normal production schedules. Only lost a week in that hurricane, which is really good because fucking hurricanes. So first up, MSP for a very specific reason.
Monday we should actually be having an episode of MSP. I haven't got confirmation yet, but we should be having Tate, also known as the Golden Tot. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube and is a Twitch streamer, so that should be interesting.
If you say so. I have no idea who this person is. I haven't had time to research. Getting everything back on track. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. So, but anyway, on Wednesday. So this is going to be a bit of an odd one because our guest this week is none other than Nakatalele. I'm like, yeah, the same Nakatalele who used to be a cast member on this program. And the reason why we're doing an interview with him is, well, he is actually making a game. Like a legitimate, serious game that's in active development. None of this Well Gaia, it's coming out, maybe sometime in the next eternity deal. I know he does work on Well Gaia, but he's been working on Well Gaia for the literally the entire amount of time I've known him. Like this game,
kind of like the what's his name, the Titanic guy, James Cameron with Avatar. Whatever. I was gonna get to, it's like his pet world that he's developing a game in that will take until he has it right because it's something that he cares about a lot.
I'm like, Avatar got released.
I know, but not quickly.
Maybe so, but it's out. I'm like, Well Gaia is more like that game that took 20 years to get released. That I can't remember right now. Anyway, point being, Naka is actually developing a puzzle game, a competitive puzzle game, something like Puyo Puyo or Tetris Attack, Puzzle League, whatever you want to call it. Magical Drop. In fact, I think I've seen in like one of his streams where he mentioned researching a whole bunch of puzzle games for this project. So yeah, this is Nakatalele, the game maker, we're interviewing, which should be interesting in its own right. So keeping that in mind, I'm looking forward to having Naka back. I think it's been about a year since he last graced our program, maybe less. I don't know. Is whenever we had Barry on for her game, Visual Out, and before anyone asks, Madame Barry's probably going to be there in the background, but I don't think she's going to be a part of the broadcast since this is Naka's project, not he's not doing this in conjunction with Madame Barry or anything like that. Let's see. As far as next week, we've got reviews for Color Code, the Shadows of Kurgansk, and Stardrift Nomads. Until Monday, I guess. It's gonna be odd working on a Monday. But with that in mind, I wish you good gaming.